That image, however, has come under intense scrutiny in recent months. Federal investigators opened inquiries after multiple civil complaints hinted at a pattern of coercive behavior that, if proven, could violate both state and federal statutes. Former associates, employees, and personal acquaintances began sharing accounts that prosecutors say outline a consistent method of exerting control behind the scenes. Defense attorneys counter that these stories are riddled with inconsistencies, involve people with financial motives, and ignore Combs's long record of charitable giving and mentorship. As headlines multiplied, a once unquestioned legacy started to fracture, forcing fans, industry partners, and the public to confront a far more complicated portrait. For nearly 3 decades, Sean Combs has stood as a towering figure in entertainment and business. Beginning in the early 1990s, he helped usher in a new era of hip-hop production, launched the Bad Boy Records label, and guided artists who went on to top charts worldwide. Over the years, he diversified into fashion, beverages, media networks, and philanthropic ventures aimed at education and community development. Red carpet events, high-profile awards, and luxury collaborations solidified an image of unstoppable success. To many admirers, Combs represented the perfect blend of creative flair and corporate acumen, a public example of how talent and drive could translate into generational wealth and cultural influence. That image, however, has come under intense scrutiny in recent months. Federal investigators opened inquiries after multiple civil complaints hinted at a pattern of coercive behavior that, if proven, could violate both state and federal statutes. Former associates, employees, and personal acquaintances began sharing accounts that prosecutors say outline a consistent method of exerting control behind the scenes. Defense attorneys counter that these stories are riddled with inconsistencies, involve people with financial motives, and ignore Combs's long record of charitable giving and mentorship. As headlines multiplied, a once unquestioned legacy started to fracture, forcing fans, industry partners, and the public to confront a far more complicated portrait. One turning point now under the microscope traces back to a casual girls' trip to Miami in late 2020. According to testimony, a small vacation group was invited to Combs's residence on Star Island, a gated enclave known for its waterfront mansions and celebrity neighbors. Among the guests was a woman later identified in court documents only as Jane. She told jurors that the evening radiated generosity, gourmet catering appeared without request, and transportation was arranged for anyone needing a ride back to their hotel. Jane said she was struck by Combs's attentiveness and humor, describing the atmosphere as surprisingly relaxed, given the superstar surroundings. That first encounter, she explained, laid the groundwork for a private line of communication that soon grew more frequent. By January 2021, the connection had deepened enough for Jane to accept another invitation to Miami, this time with accommodations organized entirely by Combs's staff. Court testimony indicates she was placed in a luxury hotel, driven in discreet vehicles, and offered an itinerary packed with fine dining, late-night movie screenings, and sunrise balcony conversations overlooking Biscayne Bay. Jane told the court she felt completely taken by her host's charm and attention to detail, describing the 5-day visit as straight out of a dream sequence. Social media snapshots from that period, mostly wide smiles, beachfront sunsets, and designer outfits, reinforced the narrative of carefree indulgence. In public view, nothing seemed amiss. In private, Jane said subtle expectations were beginning to form. According to her sworn statement, a pivotal conversation unfolded in May 2021. Jane testified that Combs broached the idea of inviting a third person into what had until then been a 2-party relationship. She recalls interpreting the suggestion as hypothetical, but arrangements moved quickly from discussion to execution. Hotel employees, she claimed, prepared a penthouse suite characterized by dim lighting and carefully draped furniture. Jane admitted to feeling a blend of intrigue and apprehension, reasoning that she wanted to accommodate her partner's wishes while also safeguarding her own comfort. Prosecutors now cite that evening as the moment a door was opened to more frequent scenarios Jane would later describe as emotionally draining, Defense lawyers maintain that consenting adults are entitled to private preferences and that nothing illegal occurred. From that night onward, Jane alleges nearly every reunion followed a patterned routine set not in private homes, but in high-end suites. She described rooms accented by crimson bulbs, neutral linens covering most furnishings, and a supply cart that included unusually large quantities of baby oil. While that detail became tabloid fodder, prosecutors argue it points to advanced planning and systematic control, an interpretation the defense firmly contests. Jane told jurors that some gatherings stretched well beyond 24 hours, leaving her physically exhausted yet reluctant to voice objections. Government attorneys presented these claims as evidence of a power imbalance. The defense answered that Jane could have walked away at any time and that no corroborating medical records document sleep deprivation or distress. Separate from Jane's timeline, the court also revisited a 2016 incident recounted by Brianna "Bana" Bongolan. Testifying under subpoena, Bana claimed that during a heated dispute in an apartment linked to singer Cassie Ventura, she was briefly held over a 17th-floor balcony edge. No law enforcement report exists from that evening. Bana told jurors she was too shocked and fearful to dial emergency services, a reaction prosecutors say is common among individuals surprised by aggressive behavior from someone powerful. Defense counsel highlighted the absence of contemporaneous photos, medical evaluations, or independent witnesses, calling the account memory colored by hindsight. For observers, the episode raised difficult questions about why some potential victims delay formal complaints and how that delay affects the credibility of later testimony. Modern technology soon became another focal point. Digital forensics specialist Enrique Santos described for jurors how he extracted data from 3 iPhones once used by Cassie Ventura. Contrary to popular belief, deleting a message does not always remove it from a device's physical storage. Using specialized tools, Santos said he recovered thousands of text fragments and voice notes, some of which referred to balcony threats and other intimidating conduct. Prosecutors treated the recovered messages as puzzle pieces that aligned with witness timelines. Defense attorneys countered that message snippets can lose crucial context when taken out of conversation threads, arguing that a single ominous sentence might have been part of a larger discussion the jury has not seen. The technical testimony underscored how modern devices can become silent witnesses, preserving details users thought were gone forever. Back on the human level, Jane told the court she eventually sought a traditional, one-on-one partnership. By late 2021, she testified, she asked Combs to discontinue scenarios involving additional participants. She alleged that those requests were met with implied financial pressure, remarks, for instance, about withdrawing rent support or reducing travel arrangements. According to her timeline, the couple took 2 mutually recognized breaks, one brief hiatus and a longer separation from October 2023 to February 2024. Despite the distance, communication resumed afterward. Defense counsel suggested the pauses show that Jane always had agency and could detach when she wished. Prosecutors replied that financial entanglements, lifestyle benefits, and emotional bonds can complicate what otherwise looks like freedom of choice. Inside the courtroom, tension has often been palpable. When Jane took the stand, she occasionally paused mid-sentence, wiped tears, and regrouped before answering. Defense lawyers pressed for exact dates, flight numbers, and hotel names, arguing that a reliable narrative must be consistent down to small details. At one juncture, they asked Jane to reconcile a gap between her phone's location data and her memory of an encounter. Prosecutors responded by presenting hotel receipts, airline manifests, and time-stamped messages they say bridge those gaps. Observers noted jurors watching intently, some jotting quick notes whenever digital evidence appeared to back up or contradict a witness's recollection. The push and pull illustrates how modern trials often hinge on both personal testimony and hard data verification. As proceedings move toward deliberation, Combs's previously unshakable public standing hangs in the balance. If jurors find that testimony and documentation reveal a repeated pattern of coercion, the verdict could redefine how future historians view his achievements. If they conclude the evidence is inconsistent or insufficient, Combs may reclaim public confidence, though lingering questions could still shadow his legacy. Legal analysts caution that even after a jury speaks, appeals or separate civil actions could extend litigation for years. Meanwhile, some business partners have adopted a wait-and-see approach, pausing new endorsements until clarity emerges. For fans, the moment is bittersweet. The music that scored milestones in their lives now shares space with complex ethical questions. Beyond the courtroom, the case spotlights deeper societal issues. It reminds audiences to verify information before sharing, to recognize how financial or emotional power can cloud decision-making, and to appreciate that transparency protects both accusers and the accused. It also underscores the evolving role of technology. Deleted messages, location pings, and metadata can all serve as evidence in unexpected ways. For aspiring artists, managers, and influencers, the story acts as a cautionary tale about maintaining healthy boundaries, implementing clear consent practices, and ensuring that success does not shield anyone from accountability. In the broader entertainment industry, executives now face renewed pressure to establish impartial channels for complaints, conduct regular wellness check-ins for touring staff, and update corporate training on respectful workplace policies. Insurance providers that underwrite tours and brand partnerships will likely intensify background checks and demand stronger contractual language around personal conduct. Publicists, meanwhile, have started workshops on crisis communication strategies that balance empathy for alleged victims with the presumption of innocence required by law. Academic programs in music business and media ethics are already citing this case in lectures about reputation management, digital forensics, and the intersection of art with moral responsibility. We close with a measured reminder: the final legal word belongs to the jury, and, if necessary, the appellate courts. Until then, public commentary should remain respectful, recognizing both the gravity of the allegations and the rights of the accused. Our team will continue to monitor court filings and official statements. When verified updates become available, we will deliver them promptly and without embellishment. Thank you for choosing fact-focused reporting. If you value clear, balanced coverage, consider subscribing, sharing this video with friends who appreciate nuance, and adding your thoughtful perspective in the comments below. Patience and fairness serve all of us. May we uphold both as this case moves toward its next chapter.